Have you been considering whether or not TikTok is a heavy contender for you as a creator or a business owner to grow your community or platform? Well, today you are in luck as I'm going to be joined by the TikTok bestie, SEO boss herself, as we're going to be talking on the topic is going live on TikTok a good strategy for growth. If you are new to me, welcome. My name is Janine. I'm a live video strategist, the founder of Boss It Live. We are back for a tentative episode of the Creator Confessions series. And what better way to start it than to bring on my very good friend who is just amazing at what she does. And if you missed it, I like to give a visual. We're talking to Cassandra Marie, TikTok SEO and live stream creator. She might have a different title. That's what I'm giving her. But we are going to be chewing the fat for T minus a few moments. So I'm going to bring my good friend on. Here she is, drum roll. Here she is, created by Kat.
Oh, Janine, you're the best. Hi. Thank you so much for having me. And I like the title. I don't really have a title for myself. So thank you for giving me one.
No, I was thinking, what should I call her? TikTok SEO strategist, expert. What shall I call her? But at the end of the day, you are so many awesome things, my dear. So I'm just so happy to have this chat with you. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this live. We've done a few collaborations together. We've done a live like this before for the previous Creator Confession series, but we've also done a couple of collaborations over on TikTok, which I have to admit to you, I'm not a big fan. I like going live on TikTok, but I don't love the collaboration simply because you can't combine audiences and comments and it just kind of is a little bit clunky. However, I just really want to dial in with what you have been doing. You've always been, as far as I'm concerned, really good at what you do, but I really wanted to talk to you about what you're currently doing. But before we do that, I just wanted to share very quickly my experience of you. Before I hand it over to you, just that you do all the introductions, I just have to say this. You absolutely 1000% stood out to me when you exploded onto my FYP, right? With your stunner shades. That's what I'm going to call them. Your sunglasses, your stunner shades, your nails looking amazing. Henry in the background with the people need to stop gatekeeping TikTok search engine optimization. And I was like, this girl has got it. You had a way. And we'll talk more about it in terms of how your strategy, how you kept me and the hundreds of thousands of people, because that video went viral, how you kept all of us watching for longer and just dialing into, just holding on to everything. That's what it was, right? And then you went live. And that was it. I was like, this woman, let me not refer to her as a girl. This woman has got something. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Miss Cass. And I'm going to say, please introduce yourself. So you are a big bold. Tell us who you are and what it is that you do. And thank you so much for being here. It's just so awesome.
Oh, Janine, I'm so honored. Are you kidding me? Being with the live queen herself is such an honor to me. And like you said about the collab feature on TikTok, it needs some work. Not that TikTok would ever listen to me because I've said some bad things about the platform on the platform. But I agree. Like it's such a great way to build your community, and I'll get into that later. But hello, my name is Cass. I started my TikTok journey in 2023. It was January of 2023. And truthfully speaking, I did not have an audience or community prior to that. I had a personal Instagram page, but that was about it. And I actually had to work on my confidence a lot because I didn't want to be on social media because I didn't want to show my face. I didn't like certain things about myself. I didn't like the sound of my voice. Overcame a lot of insecurity prior to getting online. And within 5 days of being on TikTok, I went viral. So I went from 0 to 20K in a week. And my whole life changed pretty much after that. And I really do feel like one of those stories where like if you're in front of the right people, like your life really does change. And I was working a 9-to-5 job at the time. And eventually I was able to quit because of TikTok and the people that I had met through there and the connections I made. So I now sit at around 100K and it just doesn't feel real because I never really realized that even with a smaller audience, I thought you had to have millions of followers to do really well on TikTok. You don't. I had my first brand deal at 20,000 followers, but I know other people that have brand deals with less,
Yeah.
especially with TikTok Shop now. So
Yeah.
I just feel very blessed and very honored that like that got to be my reality so quickly.
Yes, absolutely. And that was one of the things that you were sharing with us as well. You how quickly you actually grew, because some of the things that I actually noticed, and we're going to go a little bit off piece because my next question was leaning into what you said. But one of the things that stood out to me was your ability to, well, number one, you picked a topic that people were really interested in. You had the pyrotechnics, that opening anchor that caught all of us. But I noticed you had a very unique way that I wasn't seeing in terms of the way that you were able to keep people watching, because it was quite a long, for a TikTok video, it was quite a long video, obviously given the breakdown, but you had a very, very good way, subtle but strategic way, I feel, in getting us to watch and pay attention to the information that you were sharing, because there was a lot of pop-up information, text that came up on screen, the calls to action, pause to read. And because there was so much text, we had to pause it to read it, which obviously does all the right signals with the algorithms. But it was essentially, we were happy to do that because you gave such great context in what you were saying that we needed to know that information. So I wanted to say to you, in terms of, we kind of have said this, in terms of how did you get started with TikTok, but I'm going to ask you to go into why you chose TikTok. And then obviously we'll talk about what I've just said, because I'm just jumping around a little bit, but I just
love
think
it.
it's phenomenal how you've actually done what you've done.
Thank you. And it's actually a really good question on why I chose TikTok. I had been a TikTok consumer all through the pandemic. I literally set up an account for my dog because this is probably a different conversation for another day, but I didn't want my personal data out there. And to this day, I have a business associated with my TikTok account, not necessarily anything highly personal. And that's just a personal decision. You do what you want with your own phone, etc. But I had my dog's account on there since 2020. And I just love the authenticity on the platform, because back in 2020, it was truly the Wild West, where you'd see everyday people connect with everyday people in different countries. I remember one of my favorite creators was she was an Asian lady that lived in Germany and she spoke Dutch. And I'm like, I would never have access to somebody like that where I live right now. So just like and she went mega viral because she was like doing these like weird little food trends, and she like went viral for pickled garlic. I'm like, what world do we live in where we go viral for snacks that we like to eat? So there was something very special to me about like these everyday people are making really cool lives for themselves. And it was before the brands got on there. That's like really pivotal in a lot of people's journeys. I call it the pre-brand success and the post-brand success, meaning pre-brand is like 2020, everybody, including big brands, were like, okay, let's kind of suss this out. Let's see if TikTok actually stays. Then it stayed. Then every brand jumped in. I was really fortunate to kind of ride the wave of like, now every brand is on TikTok. They're commenting on influencers' posts. But for the most part, sorry, my dog's barking.
Shout out to Henry.
It's Henry, Amazon, yeah, right? that's literally the dog that was in the background of the viral video. But he's Amazon must be here. But the post, like, now every brand can't do business without TikTok. So I saw writing on the wall, because I used to work in big tech. Like, I'm like, this is going to be huge. It's already huge. Millions of people like myself, like an average person, are consuming this on a daily basis. So I chose TikTok because I liked it. I liked it better than Instagram. I have my own issues with Instagram, but I had an Instagram since I was 18 and I'm 29 now. Right. So like, it was crazy to see that Instagram hadn't changed much, but the only thing Instagram ever changed into was it turned into a marketing machine. Whereas with TikTok, when I joined it, it wasn't like that. Now it kind of is, and it gets on my nerves a little bit. I have a whole podcast on that, but it's different now. But anyway, my whole point in saying this is that TikTok prioritizes the real stories. Like, I think about the news stories that we see, right? If you search Paris on Instagram, you see the Eiffel Tower and aesthetics. If you search Paris on TikTok, you see probably some news stories. If there's a protest going on, if there's, I mean, you know what I mean? Especially if you want to be more invested in world news, not that every single thing on there is accurate. You do get the reality of some person that's just like you on the other side of the screen. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Absolutely. I was one of these individuals that said, nah, I ain't doing TikTok because it's for the kids, the dancing and all of that stuff, right? That was, I was just like, I can't do that. I'm a woman of a certain age, right? You know, I'm demure, very demure. I can't be doing that. But then, like you, there was just something very different about TikTok, raw and fresh, that was attractive for me, that reminded me a lot of where I came from, where my roots were, which was Periscope, which is a live streaming platform that was just raw and relatable. It's all about community. It wasn't about the aesthetics. It was about creating conversations. And so that similarity for me is what attracted me to TikTok. And yes, I was a little bit later in the game, but it seems to have carried pretty well. And we're going to talk about community in a moment, but I'm going to give you the next question, which is pretty much leaning into what I said about your gatekeeping video and how you was able to strategically get, because I think that was intentional, right? You didn't just miss tech and community expert. You didn't just do that video in your car, Henry in the background. There was a strategy behind that, right? Am I right or am I wrong?
I want to say yes and no. So I know what, like, I didn't think that hook would get that much attention, truthfully speaking. So the hook for our listeners was people need to stop gatekeeping good TikTok information. That was it with my sunglasses. And honestly, like, I feel most inspired in my car. So the setting as well as the hook always comes from me literally pulling over. Like, some of my best video ideas come from me being in the car after taking my dog to the park. But I will say that my idea for the video was written down on an envelope. So a lot of people think that there's a huge fancy strategy, but whatever's written on the envelope is the text on screen, because that's my brain at work. Like, what I did that day was that in that video now has 2 million views, which is crazy to think about because it's so logistical. It's all about TikTok SEO. Nobody knew what SEO stood for, search engine optimization, and nobody was treating TikTok like a system, and it made me mad. And I was literally driving in my car and I'm like, why is nobody treating TikTok like Google? Pulls over, Henry's in the back. And I'm like, let me write this down. And like, I'm like, this feels gate kept. And I had just heard that term on TikTok. I did not know it leans more political in the United States algorithm. So I landed on a very weird side of TikTok for a hot minute. But I will say that, like, the hook itself and the way that I film is very strategic. So like, when I use a certain hook, I'm just testing things. But I like to use unconventional hooks for very business logistical information. So like, I like to use very highly emotional hooks so then people pay attention, but then I go in with the subjects. But the way that I film is very calculated. So that is the part where there's a strategy where how I'm able to retain attention and keep the watch time really high, because that was 1 minute and 30 seconds. And at the time, that was the most you could film on TikTok. It's funny how now we have 3 minutes, then we have, like before it wasn't really that long. But I also have another video on TikTok analytics that's 9 minutes long. And the way that you keep people's attention is by cutting your clips. And so that part is very strategic. I will never film outside of the app. I never use CapCut. People come for me in my comments about that too, which maybe I could get into later, but I do not use CapCut. I film in the app every time. Every sentence I have, I basically hit film, done the sentence, film, done the sentence. And then I like stop the camera and then I change the angle. And for whatever reason, that was the secret sauce to retaining the watch time and the attention. But the emotional hooks just come from like, how would I feel if I didn't have this information? Or how would I feel if some guru told me what to do and they made me feel bad about it? Right. So that's kind of where it all came from. And then any text on screen was truly written down on an envelope prior. Like,
It's interesting because that video, as you mentioned, was 90 seconds long, and that was the maximum you could do. And back then, it was not the norm to have those extensively what was then
long
videos, right? And now, like you said, you've got other videos that and what I see from you is that you do mix it up, but to me it seems very intentional about your longer videos, because they are extremely long, but they're very detailed. So it kind of leans into kind of like what you've said in terms of, how you actually structure things. But my whole thing was asking, what's your content creation process for continued growth on TikTok? Do you have a process in terms of your video content live streams, etc. And we're going to lean into the live streams a bit more. But as much as you're saying, you know, for you, it's just creative flow. And like you said, you were writing things down. It's still, I believe, irrespective of that being what it was, you have a signature style that it's creators by Cass all over it, as far as I'm concerned. Because when I watched your gatekeeping video and I could clearly see, I was like, what is going on in this video? How is this young lady able to keep our attention? And I was like, let me test this myself. And I did a video where I kind of did the text layering and call to action to read. That video did well, not nearly as well as your video, but there was something in it. So can you share what your content creation process is for continued growth on TikTok? Because we know that people are trying to figure stuff out, and over there it's just
Always.
like a hot mess patrol of just a whole load of things. I was actually looking through some live streams today, and it's just, there's a lot going on over there at the moment, because
it's a mess sometimes. And this is a no judgment zone. Like, I work with all kinds of people, whether you've been on TikTok since 2020 or you've been on TikTok for 2 days, right? And like, it's amazing how messy it can be. And what I mean by that is there's no direction. When I got on TikTok, I had a very clear direction on who I wanted to help. And it really is that simple. When you dial back into who you're speaking to, everything becomes very easy. So for me, I was actually speaking to a younger version of myself that didn't feel empowered in a technical space. So I started my tech career when I was 22 years old, and I had like really nice people that I worked with, right? But when you work in software, like you have to learn fast. And I didn't ever really feel like I had somebody help me learn. So I became the mentor that I needed. And my area of expertise is social media now. But I understood systems and algorithms so well because of my background. And I'm like, not many people understand that, and that's okay. We're not supposed to understand that unless it's your job. And I'm like, how can I make that make sense in layman's terms, essentially? So whenever I speak to somebody, I speak to the younger version of myself that wasn't technical. I have a degree in clinical counseling. I didn't know what software was when I got that job, and I was so thankful I had it, right? But I speak to that version of myself, and I just say young Cass. So that's the persona. But then the persona goes a little deeper. Like, if young Cass was trying to build on TikTok and she didn't know what she was doing, what questions would she be asking? So whenever I'm unclear on what direction I should go next, I always lean back into the questions that I get asked more frequently. But for anybody who doesn't get questions on a regular basis, even before I blew up, I didn't get a lot of questions. I would always ask, like, if I wanted to make money online, if I wanted to grow on TikTok, if I wanted to understand TikTok as a system, what questions would I be asking? And I take the simplest, like 10-year-old language questions, like, what is SEO? What is TikTok SEO? And I think that's why that did well, because nobody was talking about it being a search engine. Now everybody misuses the word SEO and they act like keywords and SEO are the same thing. I just did a video on that and it did relatively well, because I'm like, hey, this is what we're not, like, everything gets lost in translation here. So I think I just try to make sense of things that are really hard. And I found my groove in that for growth. So for instance, because of my own perspective of things being complicated, I'm like, how can I make this as simple as possible where my 10-year-old niece would understand me or my 87-year-old grandma would understand me? And every time I dial into those things, those videos do really well because the language hits. And also making the video about the other person. And that's something where
we talked about that.
Yeah, that's so important, because I've never, like, a lot of things are through my lens, right? But they're never about me. Like, I can tell you, like, I went viral. Here's how you do it too. Because people treat TikTok like a FaceTime situation. If we're just like, it's like whenever somebody gets on a video and they're like, I didn't get enough sleep last night because I'm a mom, blah, blah, blah. I get it. I hear you. That sounds hard. Right. And we're not negating that. But I think they see these bigger influencers doing story times. But what they're missing, that link between my experience and the big influencer's experience, is the bigger influencer says, you guys are never going to guess what happened to me. Then they lead in with their story, but they make it about the other person. It's like when you FaceTime and you get on FaceTime and you don't ask how the other person's doing. That is how it feels when you use a lot of I, me, and my language on TikTok. So you have to use more you language. And that's something that I caught on to very early.
Yes. And that was going to be my question around your specific strategy for video and live stream. So essentially what I'm hearing is just looking for or creating a solution to obviously the problem, but speaking to people from the perspective of just making it as simple as possible, a pretty much complex topic for people who wouldn't know anything about it, making it as simple as possible for them. But in terms of how you actually show up, and let's lean a little bit into lives. And I think we've got a comment that's popped up. We're going to bring that up in a moment. And for those that are watching live or via the replay, if you do have a question for Cass, please do post it and share, and we will make sure that we answer it. We're talking today all things TikTok to grow as a business, as a brand, as a creator on TikTok. So going back into your strategy, and as we move into the live side of things, one of the things that I think you're also very, very good at is community. Now, community building. Now, have you got a specific strategy? Because what I will say, even if this is not an intentional strategy, Cass, right? I've worn my shirt specifically that says friends today because you are the TikTok bestie, all right?
You're so creative.
Whenever we get out, listen, and I wanted to actually refer to some of the points that you sent an email about going live as the key to TikTok growth. And there's 3 things that you mentioned we're going to talk about because we're just going to go off piece.
I love that you read my emails. Like, I'm touched.
Of course, I want to know all the things, but I want to know all the things. I'm nosy. And I want to grow on TikTok eventually myself. But I put this shirt on, friends, because, my dear, you are the TikTok bestie. And I say that, I know I'm making light, but I'm not making light of it because you lean so well into that people feel, and it's not that you're being disingenuous, I'm not suggesting that at all, but people genuinely, and we've had conversations off about how much people do become attached to you because they genuinely do. You've created a sense of people feeling like you are there, but like you do care, because you do. And they have that affinity with you. And that is something that I think, in fact, I know, and I believe, and I've spoken about it for years, that is key to building community, is that affinity. So talk a little bit about that in terms of your strategy. Is that something you intentionally have done, or you just kind of fell into that? Oh, we've got a comment before you said that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Karita. That's so sweet. Thank you.
She's dropping some gems, and she's going to get into more of the gems. Thank you very much for being here, Karita. Yes. We appreciate you. So, yes, going back to what I'm saying to you, Cass, because I pay attention to everything you do, my darling. I pay attention.
You're the best. Oh, thank you. I think a lot of the time, so here's the thing, like I think about when there's certain things that come naturally, but there's certain things that you have to effort towards, right? For me, like being among people in like a group and on live felt very natural. It feels good to me to go live. And that is one of the biggest things that I've done that has helped me grow as much. And that's why we're like, literally we connect offline as friends, but we also talk about going live a lot. And Janine has helped me so much, and I can't wait to get into that more. But, when I go live, it feels like a second home because I feel like I'm among people that struggle with the same things that I do. And like I said, like the unintentional part of that is just naturally enjoying being in the presence of others and like really listening to them, really asking and genuinely wondering like what they're doing, how they're feeling, what questions they have. And I wish I could be more, I wish I could clone myself some days. But back at the beginning, when I was first able to go live, when I hit 1,000 followers, my lives were so good because I could give people that one-on-one interaction that they so crave. And I think I was able to tap into that effectively because I saw myself and the others on the other side of the screen. But I also I like meeting new people, and I just couldn't believe that good people existed online. And I just always, I woke up every day being so grateful that I got to be somebody's like mentor or somebody like to help somebody. So that natural part of wanting to help and wanting to be of service has always been deeply ingrained in me. Whether I've worked in a corporate job, I always want to take on more. I always want to help peers. When I worked in an office, I'd make friends with everybody, right? And I think that's just like a natural thing to my personality. What's strategic though is I knew that the niche is truly strategic, right? Like the niche
Yeah.
that I chose was strategic, but also the way that I'd show up, I'd give people space to ask me questions, which then forces engagement. And not forces, that sounds really harsh, but like
But it is
I
what it is, right?
knew I knew that they'd ask me questions
Yes.
about that. And so when I go live now, and like my whole live strategy has changed and for the better, but like it was what I was doing before wasn't sustainable because I'd be giving so much free information out there, and there's nothing wrong with that. My content is all free. You could be successful if you watch my content. But if you like when you'd come to my lives, it was truly Q&A, but then it got too fast where I couldn't keep up with the questions and people would get mad at me. And I'm like, whoa, hold on. All of my content is free. I'm showing up as a service. Like, and anyway, so what I'm saying is it was strategic for me to do TikTok Q&As because people really needed that information and they like the one-on-one time.
Yeah, absolutely. And going into the live, I love the way that we're kind of nicely segueing into the question.
Totally accidental.
It is accidental. So again, going back to the whole community building side of things that I've seen that have worked really, really well. So for me personally, asking you this question, how has live streaming on TikTok helped you grow on the platform? I mean, obviously you were already scaling up through your video content, but one of the things, as I said, for me, that was just watching you was how very good you executed the attention you was able to pay to your audience. And I know you've said that when you were a smaller creator, you was able to do that with much more intentionality, me using those words. But when I joined you, I remember your lives were heaving and you still did very well. You spent a lot of time. You gave a lot of time, and you reminded me of myself in the early days where I would just give to support and create space because you wasn't, again, gatekeeping your platform. You were sharing, you were educating, answering people's questions. You were creating community very, 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 very intentionally and strategically and very well. But you were also just making sure that you carried us along with you. And so I just want to say, in regards to that, asking this question, for you personally, how has live streaming, because like I've said, I don't think that live streaming solely is a reason why you've grown. Absolutely not, because your videos were going out and blowing up before you was really going into the lives. But how has it helped you with your growth, essentially?
It helped.
Monetization.
It helped a lot, Janine, because like I'm so glad that we started talking offline about live strategy first, right? So we talked in a very business capacity and we became friends just because kindred spirits, I suppose, right? But I think I will say that at the very beginning of my TikTok journey, which was last January of 2023, I hit 20,000 followers in 5 days. And it was because I went live. I know that you're like, oh, your videos were blowing up, but it's because I went live at the time. And this was a system thing that I recognized. So my brain likes to study systems, and I recognize patterns in the system. And the way that I look at TikTok is very different than just at the superficial level of a video. I look at it like I saw the search bar changing. I saw them investing money in the search. And I'm like, this is going to be the new Google. Of my generation, of younger generations, this is the new Google. It's like Reddit, right? And so, for instance, like that's what I saw. So I was able to make content about that. But when it came to going live, I noticed something very distinct at the time where I hit 1,000 followers in like a day. It was insane. I don't even know how it happened, but I was able to go live. I didn't know what I was doing. I had a lovely person named LT. She's still my moderator now. But she helped me figure out what I was doing because I was like, what button do I push to share my screen? Like I was lost. That was how green I was to the TikTok live streaming world. And you and I talked a lot about that. But another thing that I noticed too was that when I would go live, my videos would go mega fast. Like for instance, I would start, say like one of my videos would hit 10,000 views, right? It would then by the end of the live, it'd be close to 20. And the way that TikTok's relationship with live streaming, because back when I started, live streaming was a feature they were pushing. They were like, you need to go live. That's when battles were starting. Like there was so many things where they wanted us to use that feature. And I was right place, right time going live after I was posting and reaping the benefits of extended reach. And I noticed this because a lot of people would come into my lives and they'd be like, oh, I'm from the For You page. This is my first time being here. I see all of your video. You're all over the place. That I would hear that all day long. Like, you're everywhere. My coworkers, because I was still working in a corporate job, they're like, I saw you on TikTok. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. But like, I was everywhere.
Yeah.
And I would hear that from people in my lives. And I think it's because of the live streaming at the time being prioritized by the platform.
Yeah.
Now live streaming is prioritized in a different way, because anytime you're selling something, have you noticed how, like, especially a TikTok shop thing, those are the lives that have thousands of people in them if you're selling something.
Yes.
And anyway, so I've noticed that that's how they've shifted, and I need to make a video on that.
Yes,
but
please.
I'm noticing a system pattern where I'm like, okay, I can go live and not sell anything, and I can hold the room for a certain number of people, but it's not the same as what it was. Because, for instance, I went live yesterday, I put out a video right before I went live, my usual process. So I put out a video, then I go live. And then from there, like, the video probably got an extra 100 views. And I'm like, okay, something's different. So I'm like, I'm curious. Part of me wants to try selling a TikTok shop item on live just to see if my content will circulate more, just for fun. Just be like, guys, don't buy it. But like, I want
to talk to you about that, actually. 100%, 1000%. And just speaking about the whole growth thing, yes, things have shifted on the platform. We do have a question for you as well. Things have shifted on the platform, but essentially, I see, even for myself, as someone who is not a TikTok shop seller, I'm a live stream creator, right? I have noticed that my growth is a lot quicker when I'm consistently going live, as opposed to putting out videos. Now, that might be because I'm a smaller creator, but one thing that I know, and I keep telling people, keep doing the live streams, you're going to grow, because you have that greater visibility. Of course, the reach is depleting, but it's still, in comparison with other platforms, right? There is reach that is available to you, allowing you to have exposure to new audiences. And obviously, if you're talking on a topic like what you talk about, and I'm very specific about my topic as well, if people are finding us, connecting, choosing to follow, that's because of the narrative, the content, they're interested in that. So you are, again, pre-qualifying essentially through your lives the type of follower that you're getting, that they're interested in what you're talking about, which means that when you have an offer, if you have an offer, because I know for you, you've just done something incredible. I'm so proud of you. Like a proud bubble with this whole live streaming thing. But you're going to get those warmer leads, those qualified leads, so that when you do have that offering, that people are going to be more willing to buy without you having to have a TikTok shop. But we do have to talk about the experimentation. We'll talk off of live with regards to that. So I wanted to talk now about the monetization. How? I'm not going to say have you, because I know you have. How have you monetized? How have you? I mean, you were monetizing before, but you've come up with a specific strategic plan. And I remember when you reached out to me and you WhatsApped me about it. I think before I was out on a walk. I think before I got home and had me shower, Cassandra was already on that live doing the thing, because it was absolutely phenomenal that you. One thing I loved is that you had the idea and you executed. You didn't sit on it, you executed. So let's talk about what you're doing now. It's one element of all the wonderful things that you're doing, but how you are monetizing now on TikTok without being a TikTok shop seller, because not everybody wants to be. I've been holding off on it myself, because I'm like,
I don't want to be on TikTok shop because I'm sick of being sold to. You know what I mean? And that's a whole different thing. That's another offer that I plan to offer people in the future, which I'll get into at another time. But I used to sell software, essentially. So when you sell software, you're like selling air, because you don't see it, but you understand that it's there. So my experience in sales is very different, but I see really bad sales content, and people come to me on my lives and they're like, why am I not selling? Why am I not converting? And I'm like, well, because you sound like a used car salesman. And Karita, we'll get to your question on predictions for streaming on TikTok, because I'd love to hear Janine's feedback as well. But how I monetize, so in short terms, what I've done was I've taken a business model, and my moderator, her name's LT, and like I feel like I should definitely shout her out for this. I was brainstorming. I was brainstorming with her, because I'm like, there's these people that sell jewelry on lives that like charge 20 some bucks for a potential like wannabe diamond. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. It's cool if you haven't. The premise is still the same as what I do. They take these bath bomb situations and there's a piece of jewelry in the middle of it and they put it in water and they reveal it on the live. And each piece of jewelry costs like $20, $36, $19. Really low ticket, affordable price points. I'm like, how can I give myself to this platform without overextending myself, giving the people the one-on-one time and attention that they deserve? Because like I can't answer every question in a live. Like once it gets past 10 people, it gets overwhelming. I'm like, let me see. And also tarot readers do this very effectively. Like the people that read cards,
Yeah.
I give them kudos because they've been doing this for a long time
Mm.
where they do these 20, like they have their Cash App listed or, you know, their PayPal listed and they're like
Yep.
$25 readings when I'm live. And they're genius because I'm like, wait a minute, how can I become more bite size, right? Like
Yeah.
how can I do that, but also not do this for free? Because my expertise,
Really.
that's a relationship that I've had to work on is my information. I should put a price tag on it sometimes, you know, like my content's
Absolutely.
already free.
We
So
talked
I
about
had to
that
kind of
too.
come to terms with that. So I
Yeah.
kind of view this as like my like, hey, if you can't afford one-on-one coaching, that's okay. Not every creator can do that.
Absolutely.
And this is like I charge $27 to go like give people 10 minutes of my time. I have my handy dandy timer right here. I set the cue. So I left this board up here on purpose.
That board over there. Yeah.
And it's so much fun because like we just make it like a little game. So essentially what I do, I used to like set the queue. And what I mean by that is set up the queue the day before. So people would come to the lives and like I would be like, okay, I'm booking for audits for tomorrow. If you're free, I'm going to add your name to this list. But that became a little more tedious and complicated because some people wouldn't show up. It's a live stream, right? Like they want it then and now. So what I do now is I get on live and I'm like, okay, guys, I have room for 10 audits today. Who wants to sign up? And then if like I've never ever not had somebody be like, oh, me. I usually have one person that pre-signs up because they're just excited and that's great. But basically from there, I set a timer for 10 minutes. I set the timer in front of me and I'm like, this is your uninterrupted time. This is your time. And my moderator, LT, she's lovely. She mans the chat so I can focus and give that person the one-to-one. People are dying for one-to-one. And the number one person that I get in there is somebody trying to sell something. But and I feel like I'm a broken record where I sit here and I'm like, because we're being sold to 75% of the time on TikTok, because I'm part of paid promotions as well, right? Like there's brands that I work with too. So there's the paid promotion posts. That's one form of sales on the FYP. Then the other 25% of the FYP is the brand partnerships where they're not necessarily being paid to promote, but they're definitely being paid by the brand, where you'll see like Dove partner, L'Oreal partner, right? But they don't have to put paid promotion at the bottom for whatever reason. I disagree with that, but there's influencers that get gifts and then they talk about it. So that's the second 25%. So that's 50% of the platform is either a paid promotion, so a sponsored post, an ad, or an influencer partner with the brand. Then we have TikTok Shop. If you're in an area that uses TikTok Shop or has it, that's now 75% of the platform is somebody selling something to you. And the overwhelming feedback that I get from people is, I'm tired of being sold to. I've already spent too much money on TikTok Shop. So the way that we have to stand out as salespeople has become all the more important, because if you're selling a digital product, you're now competing with big influencers, big brands doing sponsored posts, and TikTok Shop being prioritized on the platform. Shop content is still prioritized to this day. And now that we're speaking in September, it'll dwindle. It was more popular. Like you can make a video about TikTok Shop stuff maybe like a couple months ago and it would pop off instantly. It still circulates better than general content, but people are basically shadow banning themselves because they're desperately trying to sell. So the desperation comes out in their sales stuff because TikTok keeps sending them products and they can't keep up with the demand. There was this one lady, and no shade to her, but she got this grill, right? TikTok Shop sent her a grill.
Oh gosh.
And she's unboxing it in her car. And I was like, bestie, are you going to grill hot dogs in your car? I'm like, this is out of context. This is why nobody bought the grill, is because you're showcasing a product out of its original context. So anyway, I do these audits. Most of these people are all TikTok Shop owners or people trying to sell a digital product. And basically I give them 10 minutes of checking to see if they're shadow banned, and I check to see if there's any room for improvement. Like that lady with the grill, she's awesome and she's a nice lady, and I can tell that she's a really nice spirit from her videos. But I'm like, look, if you're going to sell, you're going to put that grill on your counter and you're going to use it. Like nobody's going to buy it if it's in your car.
Absolutely,
That's
absolutely,
weird.
100%, 100%. No, I think there is this, there is going to have to be a shift in how people are executing their live stream content, their shoppable content. I think 100%, and I think it's going to continue to become a lot more competitive in terms of, you know, in terms of predictions. We'll talk about that in a moment. But for anyone who is watching, if you do have a question for Cass or myself, please, please, please do drop it into the chat. We're talking about going live on TikTok and if it's the key to success and growth. And Cass is giving her time to share her personal experiences. And it's just been wonderful, the conversation so far in terms of what you're doing. And I just want to say, I love the concept of the 10-minute audits because it's very structured in how you're doing it. And again, it's very easy for people to follow. So whether a person gets an audit or not, there are things that they can implement. But the thing that people love is they love gamification, and people love to be highlighted. People love spotlighting. They want to be
they want to be heard, and they want to be seen.
Person. They want to be the special person. You know, I've invested, I've paid for this, and I'm on, my name's on the board. And that's why you saw there was a time when a lot of online coaches, especially on Instagram, would post their videos and content where if they're selling their programs, they would put person's name on the post-it note and stick it in the background to show how many people have signed up, right?
Yeah.
People love that to have, oh, my name's up there as well. So psychologically, it kind of trains people to take action, I think, a lot quicker. And the fact that you're giving instant return, you're not making it difficult for people to find what they need to find, pick it out and get a response. And people want to know. So I think you've done really, really well with that. And I'm going a little bit off piece again, but in terms of doing that, I mean, you've been running this and doing this now for just a few weeks, isn't it?
It's been 2 weeks, and I told myself, I've had at least 10 a day, and I was actually going to go live tonight, but I'm like, I need to respect my energy first. You know what I mean? And that was something that I had to learn with live streaming. So for any of you guys who work with Janine or who want to work with Janine, she's really good at teaching you, like, okay, like it is sort of like a job, right? Where you have to show up and give, and you have to be ready, and you have to be in the right headspace to go live. When she and I kind of like collab or do anything like that, we both make sure we're in the right headspace, or else the live's not happening, because mental health is more of a priority, because you're giving so much of yourself to other people during that time frame. And for me, these audits are unscripted. So many people are like, wait, you're doing this off the cuff? I'm like, yeah, guys, I'm using a lot of my brain to be here, which is why there's a 10-minute, like a 10 audit limit, because that's 100 minutes. Right? Yeah. That's 100 minutes. Sometimes I can push myself to 12 if I've had enough coffee, if I ate breakfast, right? If I set myself up for success, cheers to that, my friend. But like, you know, if I've set myself up for success and if I have the energy, I'm going to do it. But then, for instance, tonight I was supposed to go live and I'm like, I need the night to myself. I'm tired, you know, like I've been doing a lot and I'm tired. So it's finding that graceful balance between how much you can give. And now I think I might just do it twice a week, and I'm just going to give them 10, like 12. I can even do 12 audits. Maybe I can push myself to more because it's predictable times for me. But that's something I learned from you, Janine, because you've watched me burn out over and over and over again, because I'm putting myself in different places. Now I have structure for myself of like, I show up. This is what I do, 10 minutes. And I take little breathers. We turn on some music. I try to make it fun. I try to make it like really, really good. So I've had I want to say like this past week, I've done 30 audits. And the following week, I mean, the first week that I did it, I made over $1,000. And I don't like sharing numbers, but I think it's a good gauge for people to understand that there is money to be made on live if you're able to put yourself in sort of a gamified setting. I didn't want to do battles. Janine and I talked about that. We're not really
not interested.
Yeah, not interested. No. And also, like, I want to throw a little tidbit out there for people. I love receiving gifts on TikTok. It's more of the gesture for me, just like when somebody gives me a physical gift in person. This was a gift from my mom, right? I love it. I use it. It's more about the gesture though. And with TikTok, they take such a high percentage off your gifts that like the creator doesn't really see a lot of the gifts that are given. So in my opinion, I'm like, people can invest in themselves by investing in me as their kind of channel of information. And so I'm like, I would much rather like charge like a little bit more than like an average tarot reading. Because I was looking
Yeah.
at tarot readings because I'm like, people are shelling out money to these tarot readers every day. And
Yes.
the average price point was about $20 US, sometimes 25 if the person had more followers. And I'm like, I'm giving 10 minutes of uninterrupted value. And I've had multiple people come back into the live and say, okay, Cass, I had 45,000 views after tweaking things that I screenshot these now, but like it's stuff like that. It gives me chills to know that my 10 minutes of time where I've never had anything scripted, I don't
Mhm.
get the accounts beforehand. Like the fact that it has that much of an impact shows me that I should keep doing this, but on
Yeah.
my terms.
Yeah, it has to be 100% on your terms. And I think if it's not, if you're coming from a place of scarcity, burnout, tired, I'm doing this because I've got to do it.
I have to. Then nobody's going to listen.
No
Nobody's
one's
going to
gonna
join.
listen. And
Yeah.
again, if it goes back to what we were talking about in terms of the consumer, because I think one thing that people forget a lot with live streams is creating the experience for the consumer. How does the consumer on the other side of the screen feel watching my content? How are they going to respond to my content based on if I'm just a stiff old boot or I'm really intentional with making them feel like they're a part of something? And that's why with my lives as well, you know that I do a lot of things to try and create an experience. Of course, it's about the value. I also my intention is creating the community and conversations, but also spotlighting people in different ways by using, for example, sound effects.
You're
Right?
so good at that. And like every time I join your lives, I'm like, I feel really seen. And
Yeah.
that's the key.
Yeah.
That is the key to live. To anybody listening
Yes.
and anybody seeing this is that
Mhm.
you need to make every single person feel like the only person in the room. If you want the secret sauce to live streaming, Janine does that beautifully.
Yes,
and
thank
it's the
you.
sound effects. You make live streaming fun. But if you're
Yeah.
not in the right headspace to have fun,
You can't.
then
You
we're not
can't
going to
do
be
that.
on there. And I
100%.
had to learn that too. So
Yeah.
yeah, and somebody, Karita had a great point. She said,
Yeah,
I
I've
see
got that here.
people on
Yep.
TikTok for hours and they
Yeah.
even fall asleep on live as no one's looking out for well-being. 1,000,000%. And also Janine would probably be so mad at that creator for falling asleep on live because I think that's a boundary issue. I've had it too. But if I'm showing up to live low energy, which I know I would tonight, because like I know myself, but some people don't know themselves enough to be like, okay, how many live streams can I realistically do in one day? I did 2 in one day last week and I'll never do it again. Right. So no matter what you're talking about, and eating on live, like I get if you have to take a sip of water, but like eating on live is so weird. You hate it. I don't like it. And it's same thing with falling asleep. Are you kidding me?
There are certain non-negotiables for me when it comes to live: sleeping, eating, driving. Don't get me started about that. Just don't get me if you're in your car stationary. Don't get me started. But going back to what you said about, again, creating the experience, one of the tips I will share for those of you that are watching, and you know this and you do this quite well, Cass, is the whole thing around what you said in terms of making people feel seen. One of the things that I will do is and it's part of my strategy when I'm live. I make sure that if somebody has come into my live, I recognize them. And you can't be shouting out every single person and dropping the sound effects for every single person. But I'm more intentional, even more so on platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook, etc., where it's quite easy to see the person's name. And also it's somebody that's a connection, is about pulling them into the conversation. So giving them a little shout out. And because what you do, like you said about people wanting to be seen, you hook them in and you keep their attention for a lot longer because now they're part of the live stream. A lot of people, especially when they're doing collaborations, have this two-way dialogue and they forget that there are people that are watching. If you want people to get involved, like Karita is doing, if you want people to get involved and stay and ask questions and be a part of the conversation, you have to bring them into it. So I'm going to pause on the questions for a moment and I'm going to bring in Karita's question. Thank you very much for this, Karita. Karita was actually one of the first guests you were, Karita, the first guest expert on the Creator Confessions series.
I'll have to follow you on LinkedIn. I'll find you later.
Yes, definitely connect. She's got an amazing podcast as well. But in terms of predictions for live streaming on TikTok in 2025, what are your predictions, Cass? Personally, myself, I don't think there's going to be anything new that drops onto the scene. I think there's going to be developments of what we already have. And like I said, the more competitive edge, but I'll talk about that in a moment. Over to you.
Yeah, I agree because we're approaching on Q4. And like I said, because I'm a corporate girly at heart, right? That's where I started. That's where I like kind of progressed in my career. In Q4, it's not wise to drop anything really new. Like you're planning your budget for the next year. Tech companies, like they start their budget approval process in October. So I imagine we'll see a lot of groundbreaking things happening in the new year because the budget's already been approved. So that's just like something that I like to think about. But when it comes to the rest of this year, for now, what I see happening is the prioritization of money making tools, whether
Yes.
it be battles. They TikTok
Mhm.
cleans up on battles. Once I did the
Mhm.
calculations on how much TikTok collects from gifts, it's
Mm.
like, so for instance, say you're battling for like 6 hours on, the creators, they do those battles, they
Mhm.
they sit on live for like 5 hours a night,
Mm.
and they're seeing a fraction of that. Imagine if TikTok
Mhm.
didn't take its cut, how much
Mhm.
more that creator would be making for their time. And
Mhm.
granted, like it could be more than what they're making at a minimum wage job if they do
Yeah.
it every day, but it's
Yes.
an energetic thing. And then like when you become too relaxed, you don't make as much money because you lose the battle, because there's always somebody better than you out there, but you still get the gifts, right?
Mhm.
So for 2024, I see like the remainder of it. I see battles and TikTok shop being
Yep.
prioritized in what gets pushed out.
Yeah.
Another thing that I see in 2025 is highly robust censoring. And by
Mhm.
censoring, I mean um scans, right? That they can calibrate TikTok, and I'm saying this in non-technical terms. They can calibrate TikTok to scan for language. For instance, like if I get a violation on live, I start referencing it as V. If I talk about dollar figures, like I literally say currency now because I'm scared to say dollars, because I'm not on a TikTok shop live and I've been taken down for that reason.
Mm.
Another thing too is they're getting really strict about duplicative content. So if you're a live
Yes.
streamer and you're doing audits like I do, I can't even show the person's profile page because I will immediately get taken off of live. Immediately. It's happened more times than I'd like to admit. And sometimes I'll sit in a shadow ban for a little while because of it. But I see them increasing that because creators are getting paid. And TikTok, again, is a business. At the end of the day, they're a business, they are a company. They're trying to understand their own profit margins. And they know that creators make a lot of money from them. So I think they're getting strict, especially if you're a part of the creator fund. I genuinely believe that they're going to get strict on what's shown and what's not, because people can technically double dip. So for instance, if Janine had a viral video um from February and she went to repost it, that second video is going to do way poorly, like more like it's going to
Mhm.
perform really bad. So she can't get paid on that because it's considered duplicative content. There's something in TikTok metadata from videos that it sees, and metadata is an invisible tattoo
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
sits, it's like a CD-ROM, right?
Yeah.
You don't see the physical movie on the CD-ROM like a
Yeah.
DVD, right? But you
Mhm.
know that it's going to put the Lion King disc in the reader, it's going to play the Lion King. But do we see the Lion King
Yeah.
entire movie on the disc? No.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with your video. You can't
Mhm.
edit it, can't change the movie. I'm going to make a video on that because
Yeah.
everybody's kind of weird about the metadata thing. But
Yeah. Yeah.
for live, sorry, to go back to the initial question,
Yeah.
we're going to see a lot more TikTok shop. We're going to see a lot more scraping of
Mhm.
content on these
Mhm.
lives. They're going to get really strict on what you can and can't say, but if they
Mhm.
release the terms, who knows? Sometimes if you're one of those insider creators, like, okay, you can't say weight loss, you can't say
Mhm.
fat loss, you can't say dollar signs, you also can't reference Sephora on TikTok live
Oh,
anymore. You
wow.
can't even say that. So there's different things. So I see
Well,
advanced
I'll do it.
scanning of the
Yeah.
lives. I also see more capabilities for collaborations, maybe even
Mhm.
like those voice rooms, like you said, like more
Yeah.
opportunities to give gifts to people, more
Yeah.
opportunities to be on live without showing your face. I
Yes.
see that happening. And
Yeah.
also, I see more ways to make money. I
Yeah.
don't know, like for both
Yeah.
TikTok and you as the creator.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, in terms of live streaming on the platform, I think there'll be more integration, how to the lives to kind of take them up technically, just to make them kind of just be a bit more, again, for the
Mhm.
monetization side of things. I definitely think we're seeing that, and definitely with the audio rooms, because people aren't using those, because I think a lot of people don't know that that feature's there, or they
I
don't
don't have
know
it.
or don't have it. It's very, very strange, because I looked to do some research and I can't find anything out there or online that's speaking, any articles that are speaking about this, and I've only ever done it twice. I only have it on one account. But essentially, I just think that that's what we're going to see. They're not, like you've said, they're not going to do anything major now, but I think we're just going to see the improvement, the advancement of like live streaming and the monetization side of
And
things.
subscription. I meant to say that too, because all
Yeah.
software companies function on subscription models,
Mm.
and every software company benefits from a subscription model. When we look at TikTok as a software company, recognizing that they might not make us pay, they made us pay to get rid of ads. Have you noticed that? Like, you can pay to get rid of ads on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
So more pay
Like
to play.
YouTube.
Yeah, like YouTube. And I pay for the premium on YouTube because I
Mhm.
like my longer videos, and I don't want
Yeah.
to be like, especially if you're watching a
Interrupted.
movie too. I'm just like,
Yes.
no.
Just
But
stop. Yeah,
um
absolutely. Oof.
yeah, it's gonna start looking a lot more like Instagram because it's now involved. However, with the impending ban, if it gets sold to an American company, which could be inevitable, I always say that it's always about money.
Mhm.
It boils down to money and business at the end of the
Yeah.
day. If they make the sale, TikTok's going to make a lot of money. If the
Yeah.
price is not right, TikTok will continue to fight, because look at how much money they're making every day
Yeah.
alone, right? If they make a sale to an American company, we will start seeing TikTok turn into Instagram. I
Yes.
know that in my heart. I know that in my
Yeah.
soul. I just know that's what's going to
Mm.
happen.
Mhm.
So, and which is a shame, because Instagram has become too curated, where like every time I get on my For You page, I expect to be sold to. I don't expect to
Mhm.
see anything good anymore. Like all my favorite influencers that I kind
Yeah.
of grew up with that now have over 1 million plus, right?
Mhm.
Like, and the people that became influencers, I want to say maybe like 4 years ago, right? Like
Mhm.
they have 1 million plus followers now. Back then they had 200,000. And they like every post there. I went to this one lady's page. She's the founder of like a big company. I don't want to like call her out though, but
No,
she's
it's
the
right.
founder of a big company, and
Mhm.
it's a beauty product. Every single post she has on her feed is a collaboration. And
Mm.
like sometimes I'm like, you're showing your kids, and that's fine. Great, get your bag. But I thought that maybe a video with your children wouldn't be a collab post, but of
Mhm.
course it is. And literally I sat there like, and I hate being judgmental like that, but I sat there, I'm like, of course this post is a collab. Of course it is. And I literally purposely looked at
Mhm.
her feed. Not a single video was a collab for the past year. Like there was one video I think where she was like sharing her partner, and that was cute, but then like the video after that was them collabing on something for her beauty brand, and I'm like, okay, it's just disappointing because like there's no realness to that. If she were on TikTok, she's probably not doing as well as she is on Instagram,
Yeah.
because there's a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
different mentality. People are on
Absolutely.
know that they're going to be sold to on
Yeah,
Instagram.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. As Karita said, you've been dropping so many gems today. I want to, before I ask the final question that I have for you, I had two more questions, but you've kind of answered one of them. But in your recent email that you sent, which has kind of been the premise for why we've been talking about what we're talking about today, is that you said that it's not just about SEO. Whilst it is important for your videos, there are other factors that are important if you are challenged with growing that you need to consider. And so one of the things that you said is being mindful of your why. And I've said this, I say to my clients, I say this all the time in my life. You have to understand the why behind the what, right? You also mentioned about video formatting, content creation process is a huge part of it as well. And you talked about obviously going live. So essentially that combination of things that you've actually shared, my question is, why should a creator or business owner go live on TikTok in 2024? Taking into consideration if you want to grow the things that you said, but why should they? Why should they?
Yeah, so beyond like what I said earlier about the systems perspective of things, it does help boost your stuff. Your stuff will end up on the For You page. It also really does help you get out of a shadow ban. What people stop going live if they have one person in the room. And I started with one person in the room, right? We can't let numbers dictate our future success. If we did, nobody would be on these platforms, like myself
Absolutely.
included. And like I think that I read a book from Ed Milet about it's like one more try or one more,
Mhm.
something. I forgot the title now, of course, but it's like one more shot or one more try, basically saying do it one more time. And that's
Yeah.
how I did this, is like I just would go live again.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and when I was shadow banned, and it happens every once in a while if I say something bad about TikTok, funny how that works, but it like I would have 3 people in my live, right? And I'm like, I have 70,000 at the time. I had 70,000 followers, and I'm like, why do I have 3 people in here? And it's because I wasn't active. So if I can tell anybody, if you want to grow, just promise yourself that you'll go live once a week. It
Yeah.
really helps boost your posts. So say you had a week of posting. I don't post on weekends; they never do well. But say you post for 5 days in a row. go live on that Friday if you have time or capacity.
Yes.
I'm glad that resonated with you, Karina. Go live at once a week. And I just challenge you to sit with the discomfort of, okay, there's one person in here. Make that one person feel like $1 million by being in your presence,
1,000%.
because your presence is a gift too. And just because people don't know who you are yet, and that's okay. It's not their fault and it's not your fault. And
Absolutely.
so yes, it helps you grow from a systematic perspective. TikTok loves to see that you go live because it shows them that you're human. We have to continuously
Yeah.
prove to the system that we're not a bot and that we're like making legitimate content. Another thing, another reason why a business owner should be on live is if they're doing shop, right? That's probably a different conversation for another day. But if you're trying to sell shop stuff and you're able to go live, that's a non-negotiable. I have a client, she sells dog treats and she makes 18 orders an hour. She doesn't even have to go to work. She has a young son and she doesn't even have to work a job because she's able to sell stuff on TikTok Shop. I'm able to sell stuff, like I'm able to sell these audits. And it was truly a proof of concept, and I'll continue to do it because it is profitable as a business owner, but also it leads to every time I go live, I get somebody buying a one-on-one service or a deeper dive into their account. If you're not going live for any other reason, if you don't offer shop content, if you just offer one-on-ones, open up a Q&A and show them what it's like to experience you in a one-on-one setting. I get probably 3 or 4 DMs after every live asking how people can work with me one-on-one. I'm kind of figuring out my offers just based on like what's needed now. But I get a lot of DMs. And also every single time I go live, somebody books like a $97 offer that I have. And I'm like, wait a minute. So you're making more money just by showing how, like, show your skill sets. If you're really good at something, if you're a good cook and you have a recipe book that you want to sell, or if you're a business coach or if you're a podcaster, podcasters could really clean up with this. The reason being is you could technically go live while you're filming your podcast behind the scenes. Like you preparing.
People doing that as well.
Yeah, you preparing your podcast. And so just things like that where people can experience you in your best, right? My best is teaching. So how can I show my best in teaching is by doing these audits. They get a little taste of how I would interact with them. And then there's always a conversion. Always. I just have to work on my business process. That's on me. But businesses would be crazy not to be doing this.
And I love what you're saying, because it's not just TikTok. Business owners need to be, I've been speaking about this for years and I will continue. You need to be going live. As you mentioned, it's going to humanize your brand, and people are too stuck on the actual number. They don't understand the power of the authenticity, the connectivity, the accelerating the know, love, and trust, all of these things that you've spoken about, that over time, don't be frightened of the numbers. Over time, that's going to build, and you don't need huge numbers to be able to convert and to make money for your business. So I'm so happy that you're doing what you're doing. I mean, you haven't just started going live. I just love what you're doing now. And I am so excited to see you continue to go from strength to strength. I need to get myself back on the old ticket. So I need to get myself back.
You really should, because
I've had a break though.
when we see you live, like you've taught me so much, and I'm a true testimonial of listening to your advice, right? Because you've taught me so much about live really does convert into real business. It really does. And the things that you've taught me offline are things like, I know that you have a member, like any product you offer, people need to run and purchase, because when you go live, you hold space in the way, like you practice what you preach. But in addition, like it doesn't matter what the numbers are if you're able to hold space well. You end up making friends anyway. You know what I mean? And like what you've taught me has been something that I have valued. And that's really just to keep trying and to keep going and to find what I do well. And obviously there's best practices on like how to hold space for people. And that's where I think you really shine as well. But I just want to give kudos back to you, because you know what it's like to go live irrespective of the platform. And that's a gift that not many people have. It does. And like I said, it doesn't matter about the numbers. You've been the OG person going live. It's like sales. Not much changes. The product may change, the platform may change, but the basic principles of what does well doesn't. And you're so good at teaching us about that.
Oh, thank you so much. I had to just get you say that. Thank you so much, because I have been speaking about this for a very, very long time. And it's one of the things that frustrates me is because I think that people undervalue or really don't understand the power they have that they can really harness with live video. And I always say this. I was talking to a client yesterday. We were talking about reels versus lives, and she was saying, you know, at the end of the day, by the time you've done all the, and yes, short form video content has its place, absolutely. Where we're talking about a platform that is primarily short form video content, but by the time you've gone and created that video and done all of the things, you've already gone live, right? You've gone live.
Also,
connected and so forth, right?
You cannot rely on your videos to convert to really high ticket or paid clients, right?
Yeah.
You cannot rely on them solely. And I am a true testament of that. I've had multiple videos go viral and people crickets for certain products, right? But once I started going live and doing Q&A or because like there's times where I didn't go live and I noticed a difference in my business, in how much money I was making, but also in my engagement. And I used to work in communities in big tech, and it was the same thing. Engagement is at the heart of everything. And live is the best way to showcase engagement, but also upsell higher ticket things, irrespective of the platform, right? And your content alone does not convert to paid offers always. Like multiple videos after, like later of like 1 million plus, if it's not the right, like people just watch it, like it, and they leave the platform. That's it. They don't want to convert. Lives is where people, like I have people running to my offers after a live. It's insane. So
amazing. I'm so excited. Thank you so much. Go on. I thought you were going to say something else.
No, I just want to say thank you. Like if anybody should be learning from anybody, it's me learning from you. Like I'm constantly asking Janine questions of like, okay, like, is this a good idea? And she's always like, let me give you my honest feedback. And it's so true though. But yeah,
I love the way you execute. Thank you so much for your time today, Cass. Really do appreciate it. Of course, we can find you on TikTok, but how else can people connect with you? Is there anything that you want to share in terms of that?
Yeah, definitely find me on TikTok. My username is Creators by Cass. And that's pretty much it. That's the only platform where I'm most active. I do have a YouTube channel where I kind of dabble into creator mindset. And I also am starting a podcast very, very soon where Janine will be featured in the future, but it's from a consumer lens. So if you guys are ever interested about how big tech and social media impacts you as a consumer, I wanted to take that lens because I don't see enough people talking about that on like your data and your security and your privacy and just being more mindful in your consumption. So that's also linked on my TikTok page as well. So Creators by Cass, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Cash. Cash?
That's fine too.
It's been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, guys. Today I have been joined by Cass, Creators by Cass, TikTok SEO and live stream creator. We've had a great time talking today. Cass, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate you for being here today. And that's it for today's episode of Creator Confessions. We will be coming back for the series because this has been a lot of fun. I hope you've gotten value from today's conversation. So make sure that if you are wanting to find out and learn more, connect with Cass, definitely stay plugged in, dialed in, and we will see you again very soon. Take care.